So, good afternoon. Before I start, I just want to make a quick plea. I made some new friends yesterday from the police in Queensland, and they told me that Australian audiences are horrible. They're mean, they're kind of aggressive, they're cynical. And so what I was going to ask you to do is, just to make me feel better, I'm a bit jet-lagged, I'm a bit dehydrated. So if you could all kind of leave all of that till the last session when my friend David Gentle is presenting, I'd be really, really grateful. So that would be cool. So my name's Ian Thomas, and to be honest, I think that out of the 170,000 people in Fujitsu that Mike mentioned this morning, I probably have the most interesting and exciting job. I think it's like fantastic. About 2 years ago, the president of the company, Yamamoto-san, put a small team together, headed by Sagawa-san, who gave the keynote this morning, with the intention of going out to the market and acquiring a technology company that was going to enable us to accelerate the realization of the vision that we discussed. So we kind of went out, we looked at lots and lots of companies, and eventually we acquired a startup in France, in Paris, called RunMyProcess. Absolutely amazing technology, kind of brilliant engineering, and really kind of speaks to the whole idea of kind of building this hyper-connected world and integrating lots of things together. So the purpose of this talk really is to introduce you guys to it, kind of give you an idea of what it is, what you can do with it, share a few case studies, because at the moment we acquired the company. We've been very gently kind of integrating them into this very large group that we're a part of, helping them with some specific development of the first large customers under the Fujitsu brand. And now we're looking to start, now that we've settled them in, we understand how we want the business model to work with all of the various countries that the Fujitsu has. We're starting to roll them out kind of, to all of the local account teams, the local sales teams, the local delivery teams, like the one here in Australia. So this was my opportunity really to kind of just tell you guys that this thing exists, that it's coming, and that your local teams are going to be able to support you, hopefully before too much longer. So just to start off, I don't want to spend too much time on this actually, because Sagawa-san explained it all this morning. But Fujitsu's vision is very much about this idea of a hyper-connected world where people, systems, devices, smart objects are all connected to the web and all able to share information with each other. And I think, I really like this phrase from Mark Andreessen, who's he originally was the founder of Netscape back in the day, when the web first emerged. And now he's one of the most successful venture capitalists in the world. And a couple of years ago, he was being interviewed about this kind of similar themes, and he said, software is eating the world. I mean, it's just the most bizarre phrase, You think it doesn't compute, it doesn't make sense. But the more you think about it, the more it kind of resonates with me, because it's sort of the idea that, you could say software is empowering the world, software is controlling the world. Yeah, all those things are true. But eating is such an aggressive kind of viral phrase, it's eating the world. Software is getting into everything, So the web started off just being a place to share information. It grew, and suddenly we had our systems being connected to the web, people being able to fulfill transactions. It grew again, we had social networks, we had people being able to communicate with each other, people being represented as kind of virtual avatars, a kind of digital presence on the web. Their devices became an extension of that, so now, a lot of people's portal onto the internet is their smartphone, and increasingly we're going to get more and more information about people as they start wearing watches on their wrists, as they start wearing heart monitors, fitness devices, a huge amount of information about people. And now we're moving beyond that, and we're starting to see smart objects connected to the web. Sensors within rooms to control the environment, traffic sensors, cameras everywhere, all of that information connected to the web and able to help us to connect information together and to do things in new ways. And so really, what's happening is, as software is eating into all of these different areas, things are becoming digital, And when things become digital and when things are connected to the web, it means that you can now integrate them together in new ways, and you can use information to deliver outcomes and to deliver kind of services to people that would not previously have been possible. Let me just skip on. So really that introduces a big challenge, because this is a big transformational problem, All of our customers, all of our employees They're all used to living their lives on their smartphones now. That's where they live. They expect all of the services they want to be centered around the way that they want to work. And they expect all of the systems behind those devices to basically be integrated in a way that fulfills their needs in real time. So the things that people admire about a company like Amazon is not necessarily just that you can buy things on any device, but the fact that when you buy it, everything happens in real time. You see exactly where your order is, the thing is fulfilled, it's integrated all the way into the logistics, it's integrated all the way into the delivery. Everything is kind of integrated to give the best possible experience to that person who is kind of engaging with the company. And everybody realizes that this is what people are expecting now, and that organizations need to transform themselves somehow to be able to deliver on these expectations. And you see here, there's a recent Forrester survey where 93% of executives in large organizations were agreeing that digital technology were going to have a large impact on the way that their organizations worked. But only 33% felt that they had a reasonable strategy to be able to deal with that. Another interesting statistic, actually, which I haven't put on here, is that of those, only 15% thought they had the kind of business and technical skills that they needed to actually deliver the strategy. So there's huge awareness that this is a really big and disruptive thing that people need to deal with. And all of these people, often we've talked to people before about cloud, we've talked to people about mobility, we've talked to people about all kinds of technology innovations, and you don't generally get in executives, being that bothered by it, but people now who aren't technologists, who don't get excited by technology per se, they are the people sitting at home watching Netflix, ordering things from Amazon, using Facebook. They kind of viscerally feel that something is different, and they want their organizations to be able to engage with consumers in the same way that the brands they use engage with them. But then this causes some follow-on problems because, a Gartner survey, 51% of CIOs agreed that the amount of change that they would have to deliver in order to be able to enable this digital change within their organization was such that they couldn't cope with it. Just too many opportunities, too much mobility, too much cloud, too much integration, too much application development, just absolutely too much work. And so somehow, there is a big disconnect between what people know they have to do in order to move their organization to a place where it's going to continue to be relevant, and how they deliver IT today. There's a big disconnect. We cannot deliver on everybody's expectations whilst continuing to deliver IT in the way we do today. CIOs are just overwhelmed. And then the third thing, which is kind of worrying for both of those groups, is that according to Gartner predictions, 75% of businesses are going to start losing business, start losing market share to competitors, if they have not got on top of cloud and mobile and social and really started engaging with them properly by 2016. So this time you've got a big group of executives who are really engaged in this topic of digital transformation. You've got a group of CIOs who know they need to do something but are really struggling with the technology to enable it. And then you've got this kind of sword of Damocles hanging over everyone that says that if you don't do something about it, then you're going to start losing market share. And so in our company, we do a lot of work in these sorts of areas, and we've identified 4 barriers, kind of common barriers that people experience that stop them from really transforming and delivering these new kinds of digital services. First one is user experience fragmentation. So, the services that organizations offer to their customers, services they offer to their employees, are not available where those people want to work. They're not available on mobile devices. And worse than that, often they are, you expect your people to use multiple systems in order to be able to achieve a task. So it's not even as if there is one place they can go to achieve what they need. Often they have to use multiple applications to do it. The second problem we see is what we call a lack of connectedness. So even where you have a good experience, where you've built the application that allows somebody to enter the data or to kind of achieve the thing that they want, because all of the systems behind that are not integrated, you have gaps in your business processes. You have manual steps. You have people printing things out with paper, sending emails, batch files, all sorts of different reasons that even though you might offer somebody an application that they can use on their mobile, the business process to actually make sure that outcome is reached just doesn't function. You just cannot deliver what people want in real time. The third thing is about slow pace of change. I mean, the CEO of this company, RunMyProcess, that we acquired, he loves to tell a story or to kind of question the way in which IT is delivered by using Twitter as an example. and he says, basically in 4 years, 25 people built a company that changed the way the world communicates and unleashed, multiple revolutions in different parts of the world. Kind of a huge social value. And in the same time frame, within an enterprise, maybe we would have deployed an ERP system, or rolled out an upgrade to our desktops. Now, I'm saying that doesn't make sense, the kind of pace that people are expecting from their personal lives these days, the way that they want to behave, those kind of timescales to deliver value are just ridiculous. And they also increase risk hugely, because you start these huge projects, and they start failing quite quickly, but then nobody wants to admit it because there's a lot of money and political capital invested in them, so they just keep going and going and going. So, we have to find a way of delivering things more quickly, more iteratively, and with less risk. And then the fourth thing, which people often underestimate really, is that managing kind of digital services at scale is going to be a huge challenge. It's not really a case of saying, okay, I've got my data center, I've got my servers, I've got my applications, I'm just going to put mobility on top of them, or I'm just going to open them up to the rest of the world to build services around them. When you look at the digital transformation of an enterprise, what you're really doing is taking what your business does, encoding it in digital form, and then opening it up to the rest of the world so that they can all use it in whatever way they want. You're really becoming like a Google or like a Facebook or like an Apple. You're basically encoding what you do and allowing everybody to access it. And so the level of scale that you have to work at is just completely different. You no longer have systems where you can control the user community and where you can kind of close them off from other people. You really have to be able to scale. There you go. So basically, Fujitsu RunMyProcess, this company that we acquired, it's a cloud platform that removes these barriers to digital transformation. We provide a high productivity development environment where you can model user interfaces, business processes, integration connectors, databases, all of the metrics and reporting that you need to check exactly whether things are working as you want. We provide kind of about 2,500 integration connectors that allow you to connect to all sorts of different systems in the cloud, on-premise. And we also provide end-to-end lifecycle support. So when you've modeled your application, you push a button and it's deployed into test, and maybe 10 people have got access to it to use it. You're happy, you push a button, goes into approval, maybe 100 people have got access to try it out. And then when you're ready, you push a button and maybe now it's available to everyone in the world. It's just up to you. You don't have to worry about the servers, you don't have to worry about the middleware, you don't have to worry about any of the operations. You model what your business needs to do, and then you just push the button and you make it live to the community that you choose to make it available to. Now, that's a huge difference. And so really what I wanted to do was look at each of these barriers that people tend to experience and just explain a little bit about how we overcome them using those range of features that we have. So the first thing is about unifying the digital experience. So as I said, you look at my children these days, they act completely naturally on all of the kind of devices that I have in my house, whether it's they borrow my phone, they use my tablet. But they don't really see them as separate things. They just see them as kind of a continuation. They might be in the car watching Netflix on my phone because it's the only thing available. And then they go into the house and they go into the kitchen and my laptop's there. And so they'll carry on watching SpongeBob for another 10 minutes. And then one of them will wander off and he'll pick up the tablet and he'll watch the end there. Mobility isn't really about having an application on a mobile device. It's about the ability to be able to do whatever you want, wherever you are, on whatever device happens to be available at that point in time, and having the continuity behind that to enable it. Second thing is that people now are used to managing their life in one place. So people's mobiles, so some of my friends, they lose their mobiles, they go absolutely mental because they've set them up exactly as they want. They've got all the applications they want to use, they've got all their credentials in there, all of their data. And when they lose their smartphone, it's like losing the keys to your house or your car or everything all at once. It's like a real tragedy and a case for numerous beers. And we're trying to deliver the same sort of experience in the enterprise context as well, because it's not just about having access to an application on a device. It's also about saying all of the processes that you need to execute on in your role as a person in an organization, can you find them all in one place so that it makes it easy for you to engage with everything that you need to do? So as well as being able to deliver any application that's written on our platform to any device, without any change at all. There's no kind of mobile development, PC development, whatever. You just build it once, and we take care of rendering it in the right format for all of the different devices. As well as that, we also have this thing we call the Enterprise Process Store, which enables all of the users to go to a single place and see all of the business processes, all of the applications that are relevant to their role. And beyond that, if you imagine when you're using your iPad and you get those little notification circles that tell you that there's a message for you, we have a similar concept here, so that every process that you're involved in, you can see the number of tasks that you have outstanding across the whole range of kind of business processes and work that you do. So you can get up in the morning, you look at your phone, you look at your process store, and you can immediately say, okay, I've got like 50 tasks spread across these 10 processes. Now, so it's much more than just about giving people access on devices. It's really about consolidating all the things that they need to do into one place and allowing them to choose how they work, where they work, what devices they use to work, what order they do their work in, everything like that. And the last thing that we're doing, which is in beta at the moment, but we'll release in September, is at the moment, there is a huge gap between the amount of work that the IT department can deliver versus what the appetite for some kind of process control or application development is in the business. And we see that manifesting itself. I think Alex talked earlier about the business going out and procuring things without telling anyone, or they use Excel spreadsheets, or they build Access databases under desks, all sorts of shadow IT. And so one thing we're doing is we are going to create a new interface that allows business users to take control of their work locally, to build very simple processes that allow them to structure what they do and to work in the way that they choose, but will at the same time be completely visible through the store. The CIO gets complete view of it, complete governance. And if it turns out that that application is so useful that lots of people start to pick it up and you want to scale it, it can be taken into the normal development environment and scaled up and kind of grown as a much broader application. So this is really the kind of first barrier, is making sure that people are able to work in the way that they want. So whatever device that they want, move in from one device to another, start a process on your mobile in the taxi, do a bit more in the office on the PC, finish the process at night on your iPad. That all of the work that you need to do is consolidated in one place, and it's available on whatever device you want to use, and that you're able to some degree to take control of the way that you work to make it as effective as possible for that person. So the second aspect to this is all about the lack of connectivity between systems. And it's beautiful if you build someone a really great mobile application and they have a lovely experience at the end point. But I had a great conversation with a company in the UK a few weeks ago where they had, actually the whole story is hilarious, but I'll just tell you the part of it. They wanted to make available an application on a mobile device so that their mobile workers were able to book vacation without having to come into the office. And so they found kind of a new media company, kind of mobile development house. They went through a whole process of, well, should it be iOS? Should it be Android? What technology should we use? What tools? And eventually, after sort of several months and, I don't know, £50,000, this beautiful application was delivered to the HR director on his iPhone. And he said, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. He said, can you connect it to SAP? And they said, no. We don't do that sort of thing. So it's kind of, it doesn't matter how great the experience is, if the experience is not connected to all of the systems and data behind that make you able to actually enact the change that experience is giving you, then it's kind of pointless. So in this instance, what we see is, you can imagine that somebody may have ordered some goods online. We've got sensors in the factory that know exactly where the thing they ordered is. As it leaves the factory, the accounting system is updated. Maybe there's some cloud storage, so the invoice goes into a Google Drive. It gets put into a container. So again, we're using the IoT to basically find out exactly where that person's item is. It gets checked into a warehouse by somebody with a mobile device. That updates some old mainframe application that basically keeps track of inventory. Something goes into SAP to basically make sure that all of the items that are under the management of that company are available. Something goes into Salesforce to say this customer's thing has arrived. Now they're ready to be notified that they can be delivered. Maybe you send a message to them on Twitter saying, tweet back which day you'd like this to be delivered to you. And then you send them some SMSs to make sure that they're updated and they know what time the package is going to arrive. So all of this is spanning across different kinds of infrastructure, software services, on-premise things, people, smart objects, all with the intent of, irrespective of which partner is providing this service, which technology is providing this service, how do we make sure that we have this kind of digital supply chain that makes the experience for the end user as effective as possible? And so to enable that, we do two things really. We support API management, so anything that you build on the platform you can make available as an API so that other people can integrate it into their kind of upstream processes. And the second thing is, as I said earlier, we have these 2,500 connectors that allow you to integrate to the IoT, integrate and orchestrate infrastructures, SaaS integration, on-premise integration, mobility, process integration, social systems, everything. So the idea is that we shouldn't really be thinking about all of these things as different kinds of layers of a technology stack, or some things are for people and some things are technology. At the end of the day, there is an outcome that someone needs, and we have to line up everything behind that and integrate all of the information and all of the systems that are required to get that outcome. And so it's kind of a very important part of kind of transforming the organization into this digital form, is to make sure that everything is linked together so that things happen in real time and people get the service that they expect. So the third thing I talked about was the incongruity between the speed at which people expect change these days and the speed at which we're able to deliver it with the kind of IT systems that we use today. And really, there are a number of new behaviors that people need to adopt. So you need to start at the edge of the organization. You need to understand, who is this person that you're trying to serve? What is it that they need to do? What information is going to make it as easy as possible for them to take the next step? And when they've taken the next step, how do you make sure that everything happens in real time? So really, you need to start with the user at the center of the whole experience when you kind of train to this kind of digital model. The second thing is you need to go much faster, because often these ecosystems that we're building are very complex. We don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. So we just need to build things, roll them out, try them, understand how they work, and adapt as we go along. I think we also need to embrace complexity. So there's been a long period in IT, I think somebody mentioned this idea of industrial IT, where we have tried to standardize and reduce complexity. We've fought complexity, We've said, I can't deal with complexity, so I'm going to simplify it, and I'm going to reduce what people do, I'm going to control what they do, I'm going to stop them doing things. Now, and when you look at the idea that we're going to have all of these sensors in the environment, we're going to have all of these cloud services, we're going to have all of these people on mobiles, all of this kind of big business ecosystem that we're building, you can't really control that complexity. You just have to accept that the world is a complex place, and just put things in place that allow you to adapt as the world changes, rather than trying to control the complexity of the world and really stepping outside of all of the value flows that you can get by being integrated. I think part of that is you have to accept failure. So, with a lot of these large projects, as I said earlier, organizations stop moving. They become too afraid to change, because any big application they might have developed in the past, anything that their users are asking for, there's always a big process about, is this the right thing? How much is it going to cost? Give me exactly a milestone plan of what's going to happen when. And it's all about fear and not wanting to fail, because the consequences of failure in traditional IT projects are quite high, both personally and for the organization. But when you start to move much faster, when you deliver iteratively, when you try things out, when you use data to make decisions about whether what you've done works or not, then you can start to accept failure, because you build something quickly enough that if it doesn't work, you throw it away, and if it does work, you scale it. So it's a different kind of behavior. And then the last thing is, because you are now rolling these things out to lots of people, you don't really have the time to be managing all of the IT that's required to enable you to build these systems. In my view, you really have to leverage the cloud to do this. You have to leverage the fact that all of that IT is provided for you to enable you to move fast enough without having to worry about all of the operational responsibilities, all of the IT change responsibilities, all of the kind of scaling and underlying stuff. And so what we provide is a platform that allows people to very quickly model the system that they want, model the way that they want the user experience to be, model the business process that basically goes end to end and delivers what the user needs, models all of the connections to the back-end systems that are required to enable that process, model all of the data that you need to basically support that process as it's running, and then really to deploy it quickly, as I said earlier, just push a button, have it deployed, make it available to users, maybe to your whole user base, maybe to a smaller user base, and do some kind of process A/B testing, see what works. Put 2 versions out at the same time, see whether one kind of sales process is better than the other sales process. Whichever one works, you can find out by looking at all of the reports about how that thing is performing. And whichever one works, you pick that one, you put more effort into it, you throw the other one away. So it's really, all about having a platform that enables you to very quickly capture the application that you want to build, the business process, deploy it to either your whole user base or a small user base for testing, understand how effective it is, gather all of the information that allows you to make decisions about whether this thing is working or not, use that information to learn, and then basically just take it back in and deliver it again. And you want to be able to do all of this focused completely on the business outcome that you want. You just want to focus on, this is the IP that differentiates me as a business, this is the IP that I need to capture, and actually I couldn't care less about all of the technology. The technology is almost totally pointless. It's irrelevant, because all I have to do is capture what I need to do, test it, adapt it, redeploy it, and just keep going as fast as possible to be able to do that. And you have to do that anyway. When you start making things available to people in mobile devices, the velocity of requirements increases a lot. The more you give people, the more they want. And people also expect much faster cycles these days, because the apps that they use in their consumer life are very quick. And also, if you're integrating all of these different supply chain partners together, all of those systems are going to be adapting at different rates. So you have to be able to adapt quickly as well. So when you take the consumer demand for speed and the requirement to adapt what you do because of all of the different people that you're integrated with, you really have to start thinking about how you run these iterative, fast processes and minimize the amount of time you have to spend doing non-differentiating things that are just related to having the infrastructure available underneath. And then the last thing really was about how you deliver business at this kind of digital scale. So it's just kind of a few facts and figures, I guess. So we deliver these enterprise process stores to customers in 44 different countries. We run about 5 million processes every month for across a broad range of different kinds of industries. There are people building and consuming device-independent applications connected to lots of different systems, all running on one single cloud platform that's shared with everyone, where we deliver in super high availability, but importantly, where we are updating it over 50 times a year, 5 major updates every year, where there'll be a huge amount of new functionality, all without disrupting anything that's being done on top of the platform. And that really requires a reinvention of the way that you deliver IT. You really need to go back to first principles and say, how am I going to create an environment wherein I am able to deliver a platform that enables a huge number of organizations to capture and operate their IT systems, where I'm able to upgrade it frequently without any of them even knowing that I've done it, and to be able to do that without kind of causing major outages every time something happens. And it is a completely different way of thinking. And as I said earlier, it's very, very important, because what you're really doing is now turning your IT systems into your business systems. It's no longer about building IT systems that just happen to support the way the business wants to work. It's literally the business itself is becoming digital. The IT is the business. And therefore, you have to be able to deliver that at scale, because when you start sharing it with other people, you have to be able to scale it up to cope with the demand that you get. And so really what we do is we focus, it was interesting, when we acquired this company, we talked to the CEO, and we said, well, you're a cloud integration platform, or you're a cloud business process platform, or you're a cloud platform as a service. And he said, no, I'm none of those things. I am a platform operator who deals with scale. And I basically, what I've done is I've aligned the technology, I've aligned the operational roles, I've aligned the processes, I've aligned the way that we support people, the way that we do R&D. Everything is aligned to make sure that this platform is going to operate at scale and it's not going to fail. And when it does fail, we've basically got all of the processes in place to know how to recover it quickly. I mean, it was kind of interesting actually when we went through the acquisition process. And it sort of shows a little bit about how some of our Japanese colleagues think, because they were very keen all the time to know, how do you recover from failure? How do you recover from failure? Because it was almost like an appreciation that things do fail. We're in very complex environments and things will always fail at some point. So the important thing is not necessarily that saying that you're never going to fail. It's basically being confident that when you do fail, you've mitigated it as much as possible and you're able to restore the service as quickly as possible. Now, and that requires a different kind of relationship as well, a much deeper relationship of trust between the supplier and the customer, where you're really understanding that these failures do occur and you work together to understand how to deal with them when they happen. Can I go forward here? There you go. So I just wanted to talk about 2 case studies briefly as well. So the first one is RATP, which is the Regional Transport Authority of the Ile-de-France region. It covers the Paris metropolitan area, plus all of the outlying suburbs. It's an organization of about 56,000 people, and their task is to make sure that the transport infrastructure is reliable, that it's comfortable, that it's safe. And so they run 351 bus lines. They carry hundreds of thousands of people every day. And you can imagine that the task of managing that infrastructure, of making sure that it's fit for purpose, that things are fixed when they're broken, it's a huge task, because it's not just about the buses and whether the buses break down. It's also about broken windows, punctured tires, bus stops being vandalized, toilets being blocked by paper towels, whatever. There's a plethora of things that could be a problem. And so they had a range of field officers who travel around the area looking for things that are wrong with the transport network that are going to cause them to fail to meet their strategy or their safety targets or their regulatory obligations, and reporting them so that maintenance teams can come out and basically fix that problem. And it used to be that they had, no particular way of reporting them. Sometimes the people would phone them in. Sometimes they would write it down and fax it. They'd email it. They'd send it. And so reporting an incident could take anything from 24 hours up to several weeks, depending if people went on holidays in the meantime and everything. It was just kind of quite a crazy situation. And so, that was causing problems in that they were missing their service levels, The experience that their customers were having wasn't great. The delays in the bus line were having knock-on effects in terms of the trains, the trams, people not being in work at time. So there's a real economic impact to some of these maintenance issues. Excuse me a minute. As well as jet lagged, I'm super dehydrated. And the other big problem was that because there was such a variety of way of reporting this information, often when the maintenance team got it, it was not accurate enough as to where the problem was. The description of the problem didn't make it clear what needed to be fixed. The maintenance people would go out and either they couldn't find it or they'd find that they'd brought the wrong tools because the description of the problem wasn't accurate enough. And so what we did, we worked with them to build a mobile application that was completely tuned to the needs of the people who report these incidents, allows them to take a photograph, tags it with the GPS coordinates, they type in a small description, it's like multiple choice of what the problem is. That gets submitted and it directly goes into the system that the maintenance people use to be able to draw the tasks out. They then know exactly where the problem is, exactly what the nature of the problem is. They can pack all the right tools and they immediately go and they fix the problem. And it's reduced the time required from at least 24 hours, as it says here, down to 30 to 60 seconds. And it's also reduced the amount of time it takes for problems to be fixed, which really has made a big difference in the way that they're viewed by the regulator, because they're no longer missing all of these service targets. They're actually performing really well. And I think there are a number of things, really. So one is, yes, the increases in service quality. But a bit like the discussion earlier about when you aggregate data together, you get more intelligence. So as they are finding these incidents, as they are dealing with these processes, they get more and more information about which bus lines are problematic for which reasons. So maybe certain bus lines suffer from a lot of vandalism. Some bus lines, there are often crashes into things because the roads are narrow. Maybe other bus lines, there are problems where, tires get punctured or something. So they're able to look at all of that data, look at how the distribution of problems is across the city, and then make decisions strategically about how to change the way maybe they work to discourage vandalism in that area, to make sure that the buses are a little bit smaller going into this other area. Also that there are certain tools available to the drivers in another area that help them to kind of fix minor problems that might occur while they're out and about. And the third thing is that all of that information is really helping them to build a closer relationship with the stakeholders that they have, the city council, the kind of transport users authority, the regulator, because they're able to be really transparent about these are the problems that we've had, this is how long it's taking us to fix them, this is the strategic plan we have to make sure that we don't have them again. Yeah? And so this is really an example of overcoming the first two of the barriers that I mentioned. One is giving people the right user experience, so building an application specifically tuned to the needs of the people who report these incidents, because they're not technical. And the second one is about the integration part. So now when they push that button, when they report the incident, it goes straight into the system that is able to then give the information to the maintenance people to go out and fix it. The second one I wanted to talk about was one that Sagawa-san mentioned this morning, actually, briefly, which is this digital content studio in the UK called iHeart Studios. So they're such an ambitious organization, you know. They have huge areas, huge sheds, maybe the size of 10 football fields. And in those sheds, they basically set up different areas. Maybe some place looks like a jungle, another place looks like a beach, third place looks like a top-end restaurant. And all of the items that come in, the clothes, the jewelry, they scan them all in, they move them through the building on a barcode, put them on models, put the models into the set, take photos, fix the photos, upload them to the customer's websites, invoice them. And all of that was a manual process. You know, things were getting lost. They couldn't take on new business because they couldn't scale to do it. And so they really stepped back and said, well, how are we going to become a leader in this industry? You know, because they want to be the leading one in the UK, but they also want to expand internationally. And what they did was they used RunMyProcess to basically encode all of the business processes that they needed to operate their business. Everything from receiving goods, checking that the manifest submitted by the customer is correct, scanning everything so you know exactly which rail it's on, moving it from one place to another, checking where it is within the building, making sure the photograph's been taken, it's been retouched, everything's been boxed and scanned back out again, all the way through to the invoice at the end of the process. And the interesting thing about this is that because they digitized that whole process, they were able to grow they basically were able to take on a number of large retailers in the UK by proving to them that they could scale and that they were reliable and that they had very good control over what was happening in the organization. And that meant that they grew by more than 600% in like a 12-month period from a revenue perspective. Without any disruption at all, everything was already encoded on the platform. They could onboard these people because actually they didn't have to scale any infrastructure. They didn't have to worry about disruption to the applications that they'd set up. They didn't have to worry about buying new kit to be able to run these kind of massively increased scale. And I think even more impressively, not only did they grow their revenue by 600%, but the size of the organization went from 10 people to 120 people in 6 months. And again, all of that was absorbed. So they were able to massively scale, increase the amount of revenue they were having, all without any kind of disruption, whilst continuing to change the system that is supporting them to meet the kind of additional requirements from these larger enterprises that they were starting to work with. And really, I guess this one is really just an example of the other two barriers that I wanted to discuss. One is that they were able to build these services really quickly. They basically built them out one process at a time, maybe in kind of monthly increments. And then once they built them all, they were able to scale really quickly because they didn't have to worry about any of the IT. They purposely did not want any IT. They made a decision that if we're going to go global, if we're going to scale, we don't want any IT. We just want it to be there and for it to work. And so that's why they selected RunMyProcess in the first place, was so that they could focus on what they do really well, which is understanding how to run this kind of photography business at an industrial scale for big retailers. And they leave us to focus on exactly how we scale all of those systems up on their behalf so that they can meet the demands of their customers. And so that, to be honest, that's basically it. Like I say, I mean, we're like super excited that we bought this company. You know, it really is, in my view, it's kind of one of the best things that in the whole Fujitsu portfolio. It's really of its time. It's a core part of implementing our vision. You know, everything that Sagawa-san talked about in terms of being able to connect together information and people and systems. It's basically what this platform does. All of the kind of needs that people have as a result of that shift in the way the market works, being able to address problems of mobility, going faster, scaling more quickly, integrating things more cleanly. Again, you know, it's the thing that really deals with all of those. So I hope that's useful. As I say, it's already a global platform. It's available if you go, you can find our website. but now we'll be enabling your local teams here, and so they'll basically be probably talking to you about it, and if you've got any questions, you'll be able to deal with them. Okay, thank you very much.